The Mountain of Fire by Peter Millett. Illustrated by Giorgio Baccan. Chapter 1. Jun and her school friends Rafi and Daniel sat quietly in the tourist center. They were listening to an instructor giving them safety tips about climbing Mount Merapi. Jun was very excited. She couldn't wait to climb the famous mountain. "Listen, everybody," said the instructor. "Tomorrow, you are going to climb to the top of an active volcano. My job is to keep you safe. We all have to be very careful. And most important of all, this is not a race to be the first to the top. This is an experience to remember forever." Jun smiled at Daniel. "The rest of the class is lucky that it's not a race. No one would have a chance of beating me to the top," she said. Before Daniel could reply, the climbing instructor pointed at Jun. "Remind me of our golden rule for tomorrow." Speed," Jun mumbled. No, I mean safety," she corrected herself. Her friends giggled. The instructor frowned. Early the next morning, they met Agus, their guide, at the foot of the mountain. "Mount Merapi can be very dangerous," he explained. "We need to take care to stick together, otherwise you can get lost or hurt yourself. There will be no one to help you up there. And remember, this is an active volcano. There have been 1 or 2 small tremors recently. If I say we have to turn back, we do exactly that." "Yes, of course," said Jun. "But I'm going to be first to the top," she muttered to herself. After an hour of climbing, Jun had already pushed her way to the front of the group. Daniel and Rafi jogged after her reluctantly. "Remember, it's an experience," Rafi cried. "Yeah, I want to experience being first up the mountain," laughed Jun. "Hey, you at the front, please slow down," Agus cried. "I must be able to see you at all times. Climbing Mount Merapi is very risky. Your life is in my hands." Chapter 2. Jun, Daniel, and Rafi ignored Agus. They separated from the group. Soon, they were far ahead of their classmates. Agus came charging up towards them. "You must do as I say," he said sternly. "This journey can be really dangerous." Daniel glared at Jun. "I'm sorry," said Jun, "but everyone else is moving so slowly today. I can't hold back my excitement about climbing to the top." "I told you yesterday, this is not a race," Agus snapped. Just then, the ground rumbled and shuddered. "What was that?" cried Rafi. Agus grabbed his radio phone. "Abandon summit climb," he shouted. "Return to base." "What?" Daniel said. Agus turned to the 3 friends. "We're going back right now. We have to leave immediately." "We have to leave now?" Rafi cried. But we've only just got here." Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Agus and the group almost fell to the ground. "Emergency!" Agus shouted into his phone. "Repeat, emergency!" Then, boom! A huge explosion sent lava flying up into the morning sky. "Everybody run for your lives!" Agus shouted. Jun, Rafi, and Daniel tossed their bags to the ground and sprinted after Agus. "Hurry! Follow me!" he yelled. "The report said the mountain was safe today, but they were wrong." 2 car-sized boulders fell from the sky. Another smashed into the mountainside immediately behind them. The group followed Agus. They skidded on their backs down a long slope. "Are we going to die?" Rafi cried. No one answered as a deafening roar thundered across the mountaintop. Chapter 3. The sky turned dark. Lightning bolts lit up the top of the mountain. Daniel ran as fast as he could. "I'm really scared," he panted. "Just keep running," Raffi shouted. "See if you can outrun me." A goose pointed to his left. "This way," he said. "If we can find some cover, we might survive the initial blast." Daniel, Raffi, and Jun ran closely behind a goose and darted into a thick forest. "Cover your faces," a goose said. "Don't breathe in the smoke." Jun helped Raffi cover his face. They hurtled through the forest undergrowth. Ahead of them, in the distance, they saw some of the slower runners from the main group. Daniel stepped to his left to avoid a steep bank, but he hadn't seen the pothole. He twisted his ankle sharply and fell to his knees in agony. A goose stopped to help him. Daniel was clutching at his foot with tears in his eyes. "Go, go, go," a goose yelled. "You need to keep on running." But Jun stood her ground. "You go, Raffi," she said. "It's my fault we're so far behind the others. I'll stay back with Daniel." Raffi turned and watched the last members of the other group disappear out of sight. "Quick, you might still be able to catch them," said Jun. Raffi took a deep breath and reluctantly headed off down the winding path. Broken trees and smoldering ash fell around him. "See you at the bottom," Jun cried out. "Hopefully," Raffi shouted back over his shoulder. A goose slid Daniel on his back and lifted him up off the ground. "Okay, let's keep going," he said, gritting his teeth. "Look!" Daniel shouted. He pointed to a burning orange trail scorching across the ground 100 meters to their left. "Lava flows," a goose groaned. "Let's move as fast as we can to a new escape path." The lava spilled down into the valley. Then it swung around and changed direction towards them. "Go right! Go right!" a goose yelled. He pushed on, with Daniel riding uncomfortably on his back. Jun ran as fast as she could through the forest undergrowth. Above her, treetops were aflame with the molten rain pelting down from the sky. Everywhere, ash fell like snow. Chapter 4. They outpaced the burning lava flow, but then a goose pulled up suddenly and groaned loudly. "Cramp," he moaned, clutching his left calf muscle. He gently helped Daniel down to the ground. Daniel looked at Jun. "I'll help you down from here," Jun said. Jun helped Daniel stand up and slipped her arm under his shoulder. She braced him as he began walking along gingerly. "We can do this," Jun said. She had a determined look on her face. "We are not leaving this mountain without you." "Thanks, Jun," Daniel replied. A goose limped on ahead of the others. He got out his radio phone and started to speak. "We're coming in late," he said, "but we're still in one piece. How is everybody else doing?" A goose's face dropped. There was no reply to his call. At last, Daniel, Jun, and a goose stumbled from the forest undergrowth. They were in a clear, open space. They looked back at the violent firework display. It seemed as if it was setting the top of the mountain on fire. "We're safe here now," a goose moaned. "The flying boulders and lava can't reach us this far down." He sat down on the ground, exhausted. Jun helped Daniel sit down, coughing and wheezing. "Are you sure about that?" Jun asked. A goose nodded slowly. "Where are the others?" Daniel asked. "Are they okay too?" A goose shook his head. "I have no idea. No one is responding to my phone calls." Chapter 5. Suddenly, Raffi appeared. He was running up over a ridge towards them. "You made it!" he cried. "None of the phones could reach you. We didn't know where you were." "Where are all the others?" Jun asked. They're getting medical attention and ice-cold drinks. You'd better hurry down before they run out. Jun waved her friend away. Nah, she said. I'm too exhausted to rush anywhere at the moment. I'm just going to sit here and catch my breath and be thankful that I'm still alive. I'm with her, said Daniel, wiping ash away from his forehead. Raffi shrugged his shoulders and stared at his friend. I can't believe I'm hearing you say that, Jun. You wanted to be first up the mountain, and now you don't care if you're the last off it. Hey, being first doesn't matter anymore, Jun said. She ran her hands through her ash-covered hair. It's all about the experiences and the memories now, she smiled. We'd better get in the car. It might get hot around here. The Mountain of Fire. Jun wants to be first to the top of Mount Merapi, but climbing an active volcano can be very dangerous.